Goldie. Goldie is big and gold, and currently Goldie is very hot. So hot, in fact, one of the number plates fell off, so that's a job that I've got to fix. Goldie exists to cart me and my family around the place. We've done Scotland, and now we've done most of, well, say most of France, gone through France and Spain, and that's where we are now, roasting away. However, after about 1,500 miles, I feel it deserves a little checkup. So I'm about to move Goldie to a more service area where I can get some water and chemicals and whatnot in it. And I thought it'd be interesting just to show you what's involved. I mean, I'm a beginner on this, but there are some interesting things to do. Before I start her up though, I thought I'd just show you something I did recently, and this was a mod here to make some mud guards, because the original mud guards are just broken off at this seam here with this metal work. So what I'd done is I bought some car mats and I just used those. I mean, they're pretty thin though. I don't expect them to last very long, but they certainly will help. And the primary reason for having it, because, you know, who cares who's behind you, when you've got a vehicle with such a massive overhang, and you can see I'm walking back and back and back just to fit that in, I would say that's about 1, maybe 2.5 meters of overhang. Any spray coming off that is going to be kicked up underneath and going into your chassis rails and all on the under tray, basically, or the wood that's underneath this, and damage it. But it's amazing. Like I said earlier, it's so hot here that the sun has obviously made the number plate fall off the back. But look at this, these little light things that I 3D printed, which I assumed they wouldn't last particularly well, have actually shrunk, so they've fallen out. So I'm going to have to just wedge them in with a bit of carpet or something. And interestingly, I had to turn these, because you can see these lights actually protrude. They're a bit taller than this metal bar. These are actually fitted the other way around. And just to show you how tight this can be, the actual bottoms of that did grind. I mean, this thing's crazy. You've got to be careful that you don't take the side off something. But let's go inside. So I have disconnected the shore power because I'm going to move it, and look at this little thing here. There's a nice little gadget here that you push to let your little step come out, and then you go. It's a little bit dark and cool in here because I've opened the skylights, but I've closed the shades, but I have left a little bit open with this fly screen to allow air through. So you have a king size bed in the back, a drop down king size bed in the front. You got your little kitchen-y area there, and you got your toilet and your shower, all that stuff, and a bit of a little smell, slight smell from the grey tank. So underneath these carpets, that is the grey tank, which is your wastewater, and underneath here, that's your clean water. And these carpets just happen to be over them, but we don't normally keep them there, we just keep them by the door. And then you've got your main cockpit area, which is all locked up. But what I'll do is I will open it all up, and then we'll start her up for our jaunt. It is unbelievably hot in here, not gonna lie. I am sweating like a pig, so I can't wait to turn this on so the air conditioner start running. So I've opened up the blinds and I've removed all of the security things, and you can see these are just some of the more overt ones. The vehicle does have immobilizers, trackers and everything as well, but you know, it's nice to have a visible security aid, and we've got all the external door locks, just because when you're driving along, it really is like you've got your home with you, and if someone just to nick this when you're out and about, it would just mess up your, you know, your whole holiday. So I'm going to start her up now. Oh, now that beep means that I haven't put the steps up, so it's quite handy it does that. There we go. To stop you driving off and decapitating everybody. And just before I turn on the engine, I'm going to show you this thing here. I did have trouble reaching down for the handbrake because these seats, I think, must be taller than they are, you know, the regular seats. And it's a real stretch down. And this is a groovy handbrake. Check this out. You lift it up and it just unlocks. And then you just pull it up. So this actually just goes over the handbrake lever, and it's just like when you pull this back, it pushes the button. But the nice thing about it is there's a pin down here. You can pop that, and you can just get that whole lever out of the way. I mean, it doesn't really affect this vehicle too much, but if you imagine a vehicle where you've got a front door that you're going to lean over to get out, that's like a hair trigger. You touch that and go bang, your handbrake's off and your vehicle's rolling down the hill. Anywho, let's start her up. Nice. So it's been several weeks since I started her up, so that's why I sort of really wanted to check. 61 miles since the last fill, and it's alright, there's a reasonable amount of fuel in the tank, so I don't have to worry too much about this. Really pretty much standard, apart from I did fit this groovy 360-degree camera system, which is awesome. It's got remote control, so you can switch between different views, and watch when you indicate right, look, indicate left, yeah, and even when you reverse, it pops it into a reverse view. And actually the reverse view that you see on the screen is the reverse view, because I leave it in that as default now, so when I'm driving on the road I can see behind me. But when you buy this from the factory, it actually shows you the front down view at the front, which I don't think is very useful. Anyway, I'm just going to move it now. Let's see if she wants to go. Handbrake off. Right. Yep, she's going. Feels like you're pulling a house. You've got to watch that bloody overhang, you don't try to take out everything. There we go. You can see those little side markers through the mirror are very useful, just to see where that edge of your vehicle is, because you really don't want to clip anything. First things first is to check the vehicle side of it, you know, not the habitation side, but the main vehicle that's driving everything. And to do this, you need to pop the bonnet, and it took me ages to find this for some reason, but that's the bonnet pull on here, and I absolutely couldn't find it. You know, it was weird. I had to get on my hands and knees, and eventually looked up and saw it by there. But you know, out of all these years of owning vehicles, not finding the bonnet pull. One of the downsides of working on these, apart from obviously the height, if you want to do anything at the top, like cleaning it, is you've got to do all of your engine work through a letterbox, which I'm just trying to find the pull for. There we go. And that's what you got. So you can imagine in a normal van you can sort of work your way down, and everything is through there. Although I do suspect that top bulkhead can come off. You know, there's quite a big distance between the steering wheel and the front windscreen, for example, and I think that can come off if you really need to get in there. But I've worked out my ways, and the first ways I'll tell you, if you're doing this yourself, is to rip out your air filter. So this has got like 3 mounts on it that appears that you can only really get it out if you undo those 3 mounts, and there's pretty much no way you're getting your air filter out really, unless you can get this whole box out. And the reason I could tell that is because these screws were rusted solid on it. So even though it had it written in the service thing, I'm pretty sure it wasn't serviced. And when I changed it with a really clean. So that's a gotcha. So I would just remove the mounts from that, so you can just pull out that whole box. And behind that box is your diesel fuel filter. So once you've got this out, you can get to it. And the way you get to all of this, by the way, is you remove this, which is your fuse box or your relay box, and that's bolted down here, these 2 bolts. So you can remove that and just push it down into there, out of the way. You can take this air pipe out, 2 bolts again, that goes to the air cleaner. You pop out the whole air cleaner, air filter assembly, and then behind that you've got the fuel filter. So you can get to stuff, you can do it, you just got to be a little bit patient. And what I do as well is I remove these bolts here, so I can actually take this bar out of the way. It gives you a little bit more room. So the first thing I wanted to check was the coolant, and that's still nice and good on max. Now that had run a little bit low, but because this uses a wet central heating system that also uses the same grade of coolant, I did borrow a little bit of that and just top that up. I will buy a bottle while I'm out and about. I don't know what this thing is, by the way. If anybody knows, it looks like you can unscrew. Oh, let's see, I'm kind of scared now. If it's something unscrewable, that implies it's a service item, doesn't it? Yeah. Right, well, it didn't want to come out, and it was just kind of spinning over, and I could probably force it out, but then I'd have to figure a way of how to seal it back up. But I think that might actually be some sort of drain point for the windscreen. I think all the air vents and whatnot might go to that, and that might be part of that. So leave that. That's not really what we need to worry about today. Power steering. I can see there's plenty in there. You can see it's bobbing around that max. And the same with the brakes, so they might be a little bit harder to see on camera. You can just see the fluid in there. Brakes are good. And the oil. So the oil is a tricky one because there it is. So I'm going to have to get two hands onto this, but we'll pull this out and have a check. Black, filthy, and plenty of it. So I think we're okay on that. Finally, we're in the shade. The vehicle at least offers a tiny bit of shade. But I just wanted to show you here. If we pop these open, this way you've got access to your tanks. So the one on the right is the grey water tank. So consider that your dirty water in inverted commas. And one on your left is your clean water tank, and I'm going to be opening that too. You can see it's pouring out there. And the reason is I want to open the lids on the tanks and get hose in there and just really hose them out. Now, we do put chemicals in this one on the left to try to keep the water clean, but it does tend to get a little bit of a musty smell to it. And then you do find sometimes if it's been sitting for a long time and you've not been using it, there can be a little bit of a musty smell inside. And that seems to be caused by the grey water tank. So it'd be nice to really take the lid off and get a little bit of flush on it, because there could be bits of food and stuff just sitting there. Brought my hose in with me just so I don't have to go back for it later. But before we do anything, I just want to show you something. You've got your heating system and pumps in this little cupboard. It's a bit dark, but there's your pump for your water. Now I've actually added this switch. It's not there by default, but I've added this switch that allows you to turn off the pump circuit totally, because the last thing you want is the pump trying to run. And I'll show you it running. So you turn on the tap. Well, you can't hear the pump running, obviously, got to turn it off. But what would happen is when you turn it off, it tends to run on because it's got a pressure switch in it. So it'll try to pressurize the system, and then it'll stop once it's pressurized. But obviously, because you've drained all the water, it can't do that. And the last thing you want is the pump just endlessly running. That was tight. You can see that's your fresh water, and there's a bit in there, probably about a centimetre at the bottom. And let's see if the grey water is going to be the same. Now, your toilet is not into this system. It's just your shower and your sink. Your toilet has its own tank, and that's a cassette. That's much easier to deal with because it's totally self-contained, and it's pretty much sealed. So you don't get any toilet smells in here, but you do sometimes get the smells from this. And I'll go get a torch so we can see inside it. Can we see? Oh, there you go. So you can see those little flecks. That's all basically just food and detritus. So I will definitely be putting some detergent in there and some water so we can just squish it out. So rather than use the slightly, toxic-y smelling chemicals that you tend to have for this, I do have a bottle in the boot. I'm just going to add some regular washing up liquid, about a third of that bottle. And I'm just going to go in manually. It's a bit gross, but I think that's the best way. And it gives me an idea actually of the extents of the tank, because these tanks, they might have quite large sizes. So they'll say like 100 litres or whatever. But what does that mean? But if you can get your hand in there, it gives you a better idea. Now I can certainly feel that this tank goes off that way some ways, because there's actually a support structure just there. So if I did want to really clean it out, I'm not sure what I would do, but I'd probably try to invent a device that goes through here, like a ball that rattles around. I think that would be quite good. But at least for the areas I can reach, I can definitely feel that there was like a biofilm on the bottom that's broken up now. It's just a bit like when you were cleaning out a washing bowl. So if I can break that up, and hopefully that'll come out the old tube, and we'll turn on the hose. It's all on now. We've got about 6 bar of pressure here, maybe more, so it wouldn't take long to really fill this to a point where the level is higher than the exit ports. It'll start coming out the side. But smelling my hand, oh, I can definitely smell that tiny, there's a weird little tiny musty smell, and that smell I can smell my hand. It's this tank. Like I say, I think what happens is the U-bends in the sinks and showers eventually dry up because you're not in here the whole time. And then what happens, that gives that an opportunity for that smell to work its way back out. I did have a quick test of sniffing the clean tank, and that is absolutely kosher. So I'm probably just going to fill that up with clean water and rinse it out through. with no additional chemicals at all, because you don't want any of that in there, because technically that is a drinking water tank. And I know people say the water might not necessarily be safe to drink on the continent, but you definitely don't want to be adding any chemicals to it that definitely make it unsafe to drink. And there's your precious water coming out. Now I can tell that is coming out slower than it's going in, so I'm going to have to be careful, make sure I nip that in the bud. Now it is a possibility, of course, that you can turn that tap off and just let that tank fill and then flush it in one go. I've tried that in the past. It doesn't seem to really make much difference whichever way you do it, so I'll let this one drain down after a while and then we'll see if that grey filth in the bottom's gone. Using my skills, I've transferred that pipe from that tank to that tank without spilling a single drop. Now I do have to be a bit careful because this one, we don't want to contaminate it, so we definitely don't want any bits of crap in there. It's probably not going to be too much of an issue, but if you've got a bit of grit in there, it could end up messing with your taps. And of course, while we're at it, it's a good opportunity to actually turn those taps on and run a bit of clean water through them. So that will be just transferring it from this tank to that tank. Water's a bit of a rarity in these parts, so it does kind of pain me to see this. It's you're looking at some euros worth here dropping down. Sorry for the noise, but I've left her running now. You can see there's still a bit of clean water dripping out, and I actually have attached the hose, but it's not on just yet. Now the reason there's water dripping out is because that valve is open, but I've got an issue where I can't shut it. Now I've worked out that what's happened is probably part of the electrode. So there's some electrodes in the tank that detect the water level, and I suspect the end has broken off and fallen into the ball valve here. And that's preventing it from turning, which is kind of annoying, and it freaked me out when it did it first. Now I haven't really got the willpower to go and fix it properly, but I've just devised a solution, and that's if you take a bit of this wire, which is quite heavy earth wire, bonding wire, and I'm poking it up. You can't see that, but I'm just poking it up from underneath, up the pipe, and I can worm it into the valve. So it's kind of in the valve now, and that will allow me to turn it enough. Obviously I have to pull that bit of wire out as well, but if I worm the wire out while pushing that shut, it will shut that. I have to do it with two hands though. And you can see that's it shut off now. So just final thing is just to top up that tank and we should be good. I did actually put the lids on both of the tanks, and in the grey tank I chucked a bit of chemical. So there's this chemical you can get that's supposed to keep it fresh, so I dropped a bit in there. And it does take a while to fill up though. I'm not really sure on the capacity. It's like 130 litres, 150 litres. It does take a while. What are you doing, Mr. Wasp? Are you trying to lay eggs in there? There we go. And this is how we check the systems. You can hear the engine running in the background. It's nice and getting cooler in here compared to outside, that's for sure. This normally goes into the green when you're charging, but we're not really using any power. So it's pretty much neutral, which is great. But if I put some lights on, you might have just seen the needle move slightly. Let's have another look. Yeah, it's all LEDs now, that doesn't draw too much. And this tells you the time, but also the temperature outside and inside. So we're already dropping a few degrees inside, fortunately. And this is your tank. So this is your clean water tank, and you can see we are absolutely full now. And then the empty water tank has an error. So it's saying half full, but we know there's a problem. So when I get back home, I will be changing the electrodes in the tank. The battery level, so that's the cab battery, is doing well, and the habitation battery also doing well. So we're all doing well. So there's really nothing left for me to do right now, apart from I'm going to chuck a couple of screws in that number plate that was coming off the back, because I know we're in the hottest climate right now that we're going to be. Travelling back up through France and stuff is a bit cooler. However, I don't want to lose a number plate. The chances of having your collar felt by some foreign police could be reasonably high if you ever got that number plate on there. So yeah, I'm going to do that. Right, well, see you in the UK, I guess, after I pack up and go.